Hello, we are on Skill 1D today. And this is the last lesson on systems of equations. This is going to be the last section we cover that will be on your test. You're going to take a test next week, Friday. So on Wednesday, you'll get your test reviews, and then on Friday, you will be taking your test. And your test will cover all systems, so graphing, substitution, elimination, and then today we're going to do word problems. So just make sure that you're paying attention to that. Okay, let's go ahead and go through the process. So solving word problems with systems. I know you guys generally don't like doing word problems, but the reality is that that is part of life. That is part of why we do math, is the application of it. So today is the why do we solve systems, when do they show up? Okay, here's your process. Number one, define your variable. Look for the question, and your variable is never a number. So your variable always has to be something you don't know. So you can't say that x is equal to 7 because that's a number, that's an answer. That's not a variable. Variable is something you don't know. So find the actual question they're asking you to answer, and in there will usually be your variable. So the question could be something like, find out how many, small boxes and large boxes there are. Well, then x is small and y is large. Like, read the questions. It should be there. Is it a total or is it a comparison? Now, that's not always going to be every option, but that's going to be the majority of your options. There are other ways that you might have to write equations, but these are usually two of the common ways. A total. What are their two totals and what are their labels? You should be able to pull them out. So are your totals money and pounds of meat? Are your totals people on plane A and plane B, class, A1 and class B1? Look for the totals. That's going to help you, or look for the labels, because that's going to help you write your equations correctly. Comparison. If you're doing a comparison, ask yourself, what are you comparing? And then each one's going to be a different equation. When you have a comparison, your equations will usually say y equals. You don't know a total, right? That's why it's not a total in letter A, it's a letter B comparison. You don't know a total, so your total is your variable. Your total height, your total amount of money, your total number of passengers, your total number of tickets. But then your equations will say y equals for comparison. Again, there's some other variations that exist, but those are probably the two more common variations. Number three, write the equations with two variables in each equation, right? So both equations should have x and y in them. You don't have to use x and y. I just do because I think it's easier. Number four, solve the system and label the solution. So for the first time, you are not writing it as an ordered pair. You are writing it with labels. So make sure that you are doing that work. Otherwise, we'll have a problem. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and go to the first example. A test has 20 questions worth 100 points. The test consists of true and false questions worth 3 points each and multiple choice questions worth 11 points each. How many multiple choice questions are on the test? Let's go back to the question. It says, how many multiple choice questions are on the test? So that is one of your variables. What is the other thing? If they're looking for multiple choice questions, what else are they looking for? They're looking for true or false questions. So that's how I define my variables. X is true or false, Y is multiple choice. Those can be different variables, those can be written in the opposite order, it doesn't matter. That's the way that I chose to set mine up. Is it a total or is it a comparison? And I answered total. This is why when I go back in there, I see that the first sentence says a test has 20 questions. 20 questions is one total, worth 100 points. That's another total. So I know that I've got two totals. Okay, so start with the 20 questions. How many questions are on the test? 20. What makes up those questions? Well, true and false and multiple choice. So x plus y equals 20. True and false plus multiple choice equals the 20 questions that are on the test. 100 points. Go into your story problem. How much are true and false questions worth? How much are multiple choice questions worth? Those are going to become your coefficients. So true and false questions worth 3 points each. Whenever you see that each in there, that often means multiplication. So 3x. Multiple choice questions worth 11 points. So 11 points each. So 11y. So 3x plus 11y equals 100. Now you can do the work that we've been doing the past couple of days. You can do graphing, you can do substitution, you can do elimination. That's completely up to you what you would choose, okay? You can tell what I chose, which was elimination. I multiplied the first equation by -3 to get the x's to cancel out. Let's see, -3y plus 11y got me an 8y. And -60 plus 100 got me 40. So y equals 5. So 5 multiple choice questions. Could I stop there? Did I answer the question, how many multiple choice questions are there on the test? Yes. So I could stop there, be done, and have answers. I gave you the other one, 15 true-false questions, just because I felt like completing it. Okay? So that's the first example. I hope you don't find that to be too terribly challenging. All right. We're going to go to this one, number 2. At the end of the 2000 WNBA regular season, the Houston Comets had 22 more victories than losses. The number of victories they had was 3 less than 6 times the number of losses. How many regular season games did the Houston Comets play during the 2000 WNBA season? Okay. Actually, as I'm looking at this, I'm realizing I didn't actually give a final answer. We'll talk through that, I guess. So, and that's my bad, I made these notes. Define your variables. It says, how many games did they play? So then you're figuring out what's making up the games. Well, wins and losses. Every game you win or lose in basketball. So X is number of losses, Y is number of wins. This one, obviously, is actually not really a total or a comparison. You're not comparing two things. You're just taking the two sentences they give you. So let's take the first one. The Houston Comets had 22 more victories than losses. Okay, so more victories than losses. So the victories are going to be a higher number. So you have to do more. More usually implies that you're adding. That's a word that you should recognize as being an addition. So the equation is wins is equal to losses plus 22. You have to have more wins than losses, according to this sentence. So you can see my first equation, y, wins, equals losses, x, plus 22. Go to your second sentence. The number of victories they had was. So victories was. What are we using for victories? Y. Was is the same as the word is, and is always means equals. So wins equals 3 less than. Again, less than should pop out to you. If you see the word less than, that means subtraction. So less than 6 times the number of losses. So 6 times multiplication, losses, which we were using x. The other interesting thing about the words less than is whenever you see less than, the order needs to be switched when you write the problem. So you might want to circle that and make a note about that. Whenever you see the words less than in a story problem, your order needs to be switched. So you don't write 3 minus 6x. You have to switch it around and write 6x minus 3. Again, the word's less than, order needs to be switched. So that's where your second equation is, y equals 6x minus 3. In theory, you could go ahead and graph this one, although you'd have to graph all the way up to a 22 on your y-axis, which is a little bit high. I chose to do substitution. I took the x plus 22 and plugged it into the second equation, set them equal to each other, and solved. So they have 5 losses and 27 wins. The question says, how many regular season games did they play? And that's my apology. I didn't actually write that. So in order to give a true final answer, you would have to do 27 plus your 5, and you would have to tell me that they played 32 games during the season. So the real final answer should be 32 games. That's my apology for not putting that on there. Okay. All right. It is going to be your turn. Let's see if I can slide that over. Okay. Go ahead, pause the video, and let the students work on this on their own. Okay, so we are going to look for the answers to that, and that should be right here. So x I used for the cost of bagels, y is the cost of muffins. 3x plus 4y equals 567. 5x plus 3y equals 670. Did my work. I hope you had a calculator because it was some decimal work that you had to do. 89 cents per bagel and 75 cents per muffin. So check your answers. I hope you guys did that well. Okay, go ahead and go back to your notes, please, and we'll continue. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do number 3. So find the equations to Alice spent $31 on shoes, sneakers cost $15, and Fitz cost $28. If she bought a total of 7 shoes, how many of each kind of shoe should she buy? Right there, did you read it? Total of 7. That means you have a total. So you know you're working with totals. It says how many of each kind of shoe could she buy? And so the types of shoes are sneakers and Fitz. So X is number of sneakers, Y is number of Fitz. Okay. We already know that she bought a total of 7 shoes. Go back into the story problem. What's the other total? That's what you're searching for. If you start at the beginning, find the equations to Alice spent $131. Is that a total? Absolutely it is. So you need to write one equation about shoes, number of shoes, and you need to write one equation about money. I think the money one is always a little bit easier because dollar signs stick out. So sneakers cost $15, so 15x. Fitz cost $28, so 28y. And that's equal to the total dollars, 131. So 15x plus 28y equals 131. Go back to the fact that we know that she bought a total of 7 shoes. What makes up those shoes? The sneakers and the Fitz. So x plus y equals 7. Again, go ahead, pick your method. Substitution would definitely be doable. Again, you can tell that I chose elimination. It's just my favorite method, so I use it a lot. You can see the work that I did there. I got to an answer of 2 shoes for 2 Fitz. There were 7 shoes total, so 5 sneakers. That was probably a pretty easy solution. Okay, all right. All right, go ahead and pause the video and give the students some time to work on this. It's another story problem. Obviously, that's what the whole lesson is about. Write your 2 equations and solve them and label your answer. So go ahead and pause this and we will show you the answer in a minute or 2. Okay, welcome back. You can go ahead and see the work that I did. I did X is equal to the yards rushed by player 1. And Y is yards rushed by player 2. You again pull that from the question. It says how many yards were rushed by each player. So that's where those go. It says 4 times as many, so 4y, X is equal to 4y, and they had a total of 1,550 yards, so X plus Y equals that. I chose, let me see, what did I do? I did substitution, right? 4y plus y, so 5y. You get y, so player number 2 had 310 yards, and that means that player X had 1,240 yards. Again, depending on how you plugged in these into your equation, it's possible that you might have those switched, but as long as you've got those number values, you're good. All right, that's all I'm going to go through. There are more in your notes. I know we didn't do them all. If you want more examples, if you need to see more, feel free to check Haiku. Otherwise, you should be able to get your homework and start working on that. If you finish your homework, you should check that on Haiku before moving on to anything else. Okay, bye.